The year of learning, Sue and Ann Garelick in memory of Malka Pearl Mann and Philip Mann, and in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, shall share her children and grandchildren. In memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook Yisrael ben Arav Akiva, Marsha Federbush and family. In memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends. In memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman Edelbad Yaakov, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, China Bas Yeshaya. Friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov. Friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi. Sorry. A month of learning. Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef. Yosef Eliezer ben Tzvi Hirsch. B. Pizer, in memory of her father, Yisachar Dov ben Shmuel. Mordechai and Miriam Burr, in memory of his mother, Manya bat Harav Shimon Halevi. Stanley Presser, in memory of his wife, Chaya Leah bat Zev HaKohen. We have a week of learning by Bonnie Galb Jackson, in memory of her father, Mordechai Yoel ben Benyamin. Today being the 26th, we have a day of learning plus Torah Fund by Judy Fuchs, in memory of her husband, Dov Ber ben Eliyahu. And we also have today by Rhoda Mashiach, a day of learning in memory of her sister, Esther Yacha bat Noach, and by Ari and Judy Cohen, in memory of their friend, Dov Ber ben Eliyahu as well. Shama's having Aliyah, Crank Rafir, Vati Yashir, Shema Tzliah, and the Chol B'nai Yisrael, good Gaben Shtia.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Good to see you, Zev, everybody. Bob is there, good. It helped that today was Monday and we could omit the long tachanan and the davening today, huh? Okay. So how best to look at today's Gemara is the question that I was thinking about as I prepared yesterday. In that we're basically going to see that there is still a question as to the appropriate order in terms of whether the incense comes first or the preparation of the lamps. Some want to suggest that the preparation involved trimming the wicks or adjusting the wicks. Others want to suggest that it was removing any of the excess oil or ash or things of that nature. And in any event, we see there seems to be a machloket between Abba Shaul and Rabbanan. The rabbis were saying that it was that basically all 7 lamps were lit or dealt with, let's say, at the same time. Okay? Abba Shaul disagreed to that. Okay, and so keeping that issue in mind, okay, we saw at the bottom, right, of Yud Daled Amud Beis, okay, starting a few lines up where it's about 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up on the bottom of Yud Dalet Amud Beis. Okay? Abba Shaul Omer, so according to Abba Shaul, Meitiv Vechar Kach Maktir, that one, let's say, prepared, trimmed, cleaned, however term, dressed the lamps first, it would appear, and then afterwards lit the incense. My Tamada Abba Shaul, what's his reasoning? Asks the Gemara. Dichtiv, because the pasuk says, "Baboker behetivo et hanerot," that every morning one addressed the nerot, the lamps, v'hadar yaktirena, and after that there was another pasuk, right, in the same section that refers to the incense. The Rabbanan and the rabbis, Ma'ika Amar Rachmana, are asking the question, what is the Torah requiring? Be'iden hatava tehei mekater ketoret, that the preparation, that the time of the lamps was done at the same time that the incense was done. And that's where we stopped yesterday. So now on Ted Vav Amud Aleph, as we continue, the Gemara wants to try to argue, perhaps in favor of one view or another. De'ilo temahachi, because if you don't say that, Bein ha'arbayim, when we come to the Tamid offering in the afternoon, Dichtiv, right, where it says there that it's supposed to be done at, let's say, approximately dusk, Baha'alot aharon et hanerot, Bein ha'arbayim yaktirena. Okay, implying, says the pasuk, when Aaron lights the light lamps at dusk, he burns it. Hachinami, here too, the bereisha madlik nerot v'hadar maktir ketoret shel bein ha'arbayim. This seems to imply that here also, initially, I'm going to say, for bereisha, okay, that seems to be the case, that he first lights the lamps, right? And then afterwards, the incense for the afternoon, let's call it Tamid, okay? V'chitema hachi, and if you say that, hachinami, okay, here too, then the same procedure, the same order should apply in the morning. Vahatanya, but the Gemara says, wait a second, isn't it taught elsewhere in a Braita, me erev ad boker, that we're talking about the fact that from these candles, lamps that were lit at night, continue till the morning. Tein la midata shetehei doleket veholechet kol halayla me'erev v'ad boker. That it was required to put in the adequate amount of oil and or adjust the kind of the wick depending on what your explanation is regarding the lamps, okay? Because they would change the wicks from summer to winter, okay? And those were to burn all through the night and into the morning. That was the point. Davar acher, okay? And another example, another case, me'erev ad boker, if we said it's supposed to be from the evening through the morning, ein lecha avoda shekshera me'erev ad boker ela zo bilvad, that you have no other, let's call it, act of avoda, right? And that is a valid, appropriate act at the time of the evening tamid or afternoon tamid, right? That is going to continue all the way through till the next day, till the next morning. Accept this. Ela mai ka'amar Rachmana. So what then is the Torah saying? Be'idin hadlaka tehei makter ketoret. That at the time that we have the lighting, okay, that's when we have the incense, the burning of the incense. Hachanami, here too, Ba'idin hatava tehei makter ketoret. So therefore here in the morning, right, it would seem that that should apply as well. So those arguments tend then to seem to support the view of the rabbis that they were to be done at more or less the same time. Now, Abba Shaul is going to disagree, right? Va'Abba Shaul amar lach, and what would he tell you? Shani hatam. It's different there. There now meaning the evening tamid. Dichtiv oto. Because there we have this specific language of the word it. Okay? And when we say it in the pasuk, it may be done in this order, from evening to morning. Okay? But that doesn't mean that the morning is done in the same manner. That's his argument. Now, Rav Papa is going to try to clarify. Okay? Rav Papa Amar, lo kasha, doesn't have to be a difficulty. Okay? We could say in regards to the Mishnah versus the Braita, okay, that presented a different order, Ha Rabbanan, Ha Abba Shaul, one belongs to the rabbis, and one belongs to Abba Shaul. Okay, that namely in his case, where the Ketoret is done first, that's the Chachamim, and in the opposite order, where the lamps are done first, that's Abba Shaul. Okay? B'mai okimta the matnitin dahacha. So then we ask the question, okay, then how do we arrange and understand our Mishnah here, right? Kirabanan, like the rabbis. Pies. And what about the Mishnah or Braita that talked about the lottery, that gave the opposite order? Okay? Abba Shaul, like that of Abba Shaul. But the Gemara is not happy with Rav Papa's explanation. Masefa. But I would say, what about the end of our Mishnah? Heviu lo et hatamid, right? Where it says elsewhere that they brought him the tamid, the animal offering. Kartso, okay, he, I don't want to say cut it up, but made the appropriate incision, okay, implying that the Kohen Gadol would cut the two simanim at first, and then would allow another Kohen, umarek acher shchita al yado, and then another Kohen would come and complete the rest of the process there. Nichnas lahaktir et haketoret, and then he goes in to light the incense, ulahitiv et hanerot, and then to prepare the candles, the lamps. So this particular text, again, seems to imply, right, that the Ketoret came first and the Nerot second. Etta en the Rabbanan. Okay, if that's the case, right, what do we see here? Okay, that this seems to go according to the rabbis. Sorry. So if that's the case, if we were to accept Rav Papa's explanation, okay, then we would have the following result says the Gemara. Reisha v'Seifa Rabbanan. That the beginning and the end of our Mishnah follows the order of the rabbis. Umitziata Abba Shaul, and the middle follows the approach of Abba Shaul. Now, why is that problematic? We know, all of us, I'm sure, that at this point, usually a Mishnah is attempted to be edited, authored by a single individual. And the Gemara does not like this kind of separation of a Mishnah to different authorities. Okay? So Amar lach Rav Papa. Rav Papa would respond and tell you, and yes, Reisha v'Seifa Rabbanan u'mitziata Abba Shaul. Now, if that's the case, do we see that the Gemara is satisfied? Not necessarily. Bishlema Abaye, lo amar kirav Papa. But we see that according to Abaye, he does not like the explanation that Rav Papa has given. Reisha v'Seifa Rabbanan u'mitziata Abba Shaul lo mokim la, that to structure it that way, beginning and end like the rabbis and the middle like Abba Shaul, Abaye did not want to accept or structure it that way. Ela Rav Papa, but as for Rav Papa, ma'itama lo amar ka'Abaye. Why didn't he give the explanation the way Abaye had given? Amar lach. So he would tell you, Rav Papa, Tana Bereisha hatavat shtei nerot, right? Because there, it says it seems to imply, he says, that you would have the preparation, the cleaning, the trimming of two lamps. Vahada hatavat chamesh nerot. Then you would need to have, there would be an interruption. And then you would go back and do the other 5 lamps. Va'abai amalach, and Abai would argue but differently. Oroi ba'almahu the kamore. Abai's argument, okay, it's different, okay? First, they're telling you about the general lighting, okay? That's what it's teaching. V'sidra hahadar tanile. And then afterwards, it comes back and tells you the order of the service. Now, having suggested then that we've got 2 different approaches, okay? Rav Papa's explanation versus Abaye's explanation. And we have, at the same time, this machloket between Abba Shaul and the Chachamim. Gemara is not satisfied with this conclusion at this point, and therefore would appear goes into a further discussion, okay? And therefore moves to a somewhat side topic, but in truth will have ramifications for this discussion as well, okay? Gufa. Let's go back, says the Gemara, and examine the text that we saw before. Balo lekeren mizrachit tzfonit, that when the regular Kohen or Kohen Gadol went to carry out certain parts of the avoda, and he would go around, right? Okay, he would come to the northeast corner, notein mizrachit tzfonit. He would sprinkle blood on the northeast corner. Ma'aravit dromit, when he then came to the southwest west corner, notain ma'aravit dromit. He would sprinkle blood on the southwest corner. Vitani Allah, okay, and on this statement, Rabbi Shimon ish ha-mitzpah, mishaneh b'tamid. Rabbi Shimon ish mitzpah changed it and said it was different in Gemara Tamid. Namely, according to him, Balo lekeren mizrachit tzfonit, when he came to the, let's say, northeast corner, notain mizrachit tzfonit, he sprinkled the blood on the northeast corner. Maravit dromit, when he came to the southwest, right? Notain ma'arava, he put the sprinkled blood on the west. Va'achar kach notain droma, and afterwards sprinkled blood on the south. Ma'itama, what was the reasoning? The Rabbi Shimon ish mitzpah, what was his approach? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, excuse me, Mishum Chad Debe Rabbi Yana. So Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of one of the scholars of the Academy of Rabbi Yana, Amar Kra, we have a pasuk that says as follows, V'sa'ir izim echad lechatat l'Hashem al olat hatamid ye'aseh v'nisko. Sorry again. Right, that the pasuk said, basically, and one he-goat for a sin offering unto Hashem, it shall be offered beside the continual burnt offering and the drink offering thereof. Okay. Now, based on that pasuk, we see just quickly, okay, it implies that there is a chatat, right? Se'ir izim echad lechatat, and that chatat al olat hatamir is either on or beside or along with or in a similar fashion to an olah. That's what the pasuk, how the pasuk might be understood. And so the Gemara continues, olah hi. Gemara understands the pasuk to be telling us that that normally chatat offering is going to be, in this particular case, sacrificed as an olah. Va'amar Rachmana, and says the Torah, avid ba ma'aseh chatat. Okay, and it says to do this to this item, that's a chatat. HaKetzad, how is that to be done? Notain echat shehishtayim. So here now we need to understand that what they're talking about is how the blood was actually sprinkled. Okay? We have two methods, remember. One is that the Kohen could either sprinkle it right on the corner, and as a result, at the same time, it would get two sides. So that would be one spritz, so to speak, that results in two. Or, okay, and then he could go to the opposite corner and do the same thing. And therefore, all four sides would be covered, but only by means of two spritzing, two sprinklings. Or it means actually sprinkling it on the side itself, not by using his hand, but by actually tossing the blood that's in the container and tossing that on the mizbeach, on the altar itself. Okay? So the Gemara now says to us, Noten echat shehi shtayim, that he sprinkles one that is, I'm going to say, equivalent to two, k'ma'aseh olah, as was done for a olah offering. Shtayim shehen shtayim, two that are two, k'ma'aseh chatat. And those two are like two. In other words, they're sort of, I don't want to say poured, but tossed on each separate wall, like the chatat. So the olah is done on the top, near the horns of the mizbeach. The olah, the chatat, is done towards the bottom, below the line that goes around on one of the other wall. Okay. So the Gemara then says, what does he do then? V'litain shtayim shehen arba k'ma'aseh olah. So maybe instead he should do two. That would equal four, as is normally done in the process for an olah. Va'arba'a shehin arba k'ma'aseh chatat, and then do four, as is normally done for the four in the normal process of a chatat. So the Gemara now responds to that. Lo matzinu damim shemekaprim v'chozrim u'mekaprim. We don't find a situation, says the Gemara, where you use the blood for atonement and then afterwards again atone with it. V'chi matzinu damim shechetzian chatat v'chetzian olah, asks the Gemara. And do we ever find a situation where the blood is used half as a chatas offering and half for an olah offering? Ela al korchem. Okay. Rather, what happens? Hakishan hakatuv. But rather, in this case, it wasn't normal. It's against the normal situation that the text associated the two of them. Hachanami ba'al karchan. Here too, again, it wasn't the normal method, not normal associate against the normal pattern. Hekishan katakatu. That again, the association was made with the text, the two of them. Hatam pisuk matanot ba'almahi. Okay, there he says we have the separation of the sprinklings in general. V'nitiv echad shehi shtayim. So the Gemara then says, so maybe we should bring one, again, that's going to be equivalent to two. Lamata, below, k'ma'aseh olah, shtayim, shehen shtayim, lamale, k'ma'aseh chatat. Okay? So maybe we do it differently again, suggests the Gemara. That we take the two, okay, and do it like the normally would be done on the olah, but we do it down below, and we do the two that would be normally for the chatat, instead of down below, do it above. So the Gemara answers, Lo matzinu damim shechatzian lamala v'chatzian lamata. We don't normally find that the same, let's say, vessel of blood is half used on top and half used on the bottom. V'lo, asks the Gemara, that's not the case. V'hatnan, but haven't we learned in a Mishnah? Hazemi menu echat lamala v'shiva lamata. Namely, that when the Kohen would go in to the Beit HaMikdash, and he would need to sprinkle blood on the parochet, what did he do? In that case, okay, he would dip his hand into the vessel, and how he maneuvered his hand would indicate whether he would sort of throw like this, okay? Or whether he would flip it from underneath.
Call from grade 7.
Okay. So what is the Gemara saying? Kimatzleif. He did it like a whip.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Okay. Mai kimatzleif. What does it mean? Like a whip? Okay. Machave Rav Yehuda Kimand Gedana. He says Rav Yehuda showed with his hand that it was like adjusting it up or down by the movement of his hand. So up would be dipping one's hand in, and then let's say overhand throwing it. Okay? Throwing it down would be dipping one's hand in the vessel and then flipping it up. Okay, like almost like an underhand throw. Okay. Think of baseball versus softball is a good example that I could give. Right? Possibly. Velo and no, vahatanan. Again, we have a Mishnah that teach Hazem imenu al taharo shamizbeach sheva pa'amim. Mai. But we have a Mishnah that says that he puts it on the tahar. What does the mean tohar? Of the mizbeach 7 times. What are we talking about? Love al palge de mizbeach. Isn't he putting it on half of the mizbeach in the inner altar? Right? Kida amre inshi, as people might say, tohar tihara, hu palga diyoma, as people would say, when we're referring to half, it's like half the day, midday. Okay, that was a colloquial expression that tohar implied that it was just done halfway up. Amar Rava, says Rava Bar Shila, no, that's not the case, he said. When it said tova, he's arguing agufe de mizbeach, on the top of the mizbeach. Tichtiv, why? Because it's written, uke'etzem hashamayim the tohar, and the like of the heavy, very heaven for clarity. My shna diyahiv ola beresha v'hadar yahiv dechatat. So we come back and we still ask, so what is so unique? What is different here? Right? That should bring an ola at first and afterwards bring a chatas. Okay? Why not that way? Nativ beresha de chatat v'hadar nativ de ola. So let him sprinkle it first for the chatas and then sprinkle afterwards. The one would do it for the ola. Okay. Kevan de ola he. Since the tamid offering is considered an ola, he kadma beresha. That normally goes first. That would be the issue. So the Gemara then continues, Umay shna da yehiv mizrachit tzfonit, uma'aravit dromit. So what about then this issue of the direction, where it gets sprinkled? Right? So what's so unique or different that he should come then to the northeast corner first and then the southwest? Nitiv dromit mizrachit, let him sprinkle on the southwest. Vahadar tzfonit ma'aravit, and then afterwards on the northeast. Amre, again they answer, Ola te'una yesod, that a burnt offering needs to be sprinkled on that section of the outer mizbeach where it had the base. V'keren dromit mizrachit, and the south, right? southeast corner, right? Lo hava le yisod. There was no yisod there. Remember, the yisod only went about two sides plus a little bit more, okay, of the as a base for the mizbeach. My shna diahiv beresha mizrachit tzfonit b'hadam aravit dromi. So what then again is so unique or different that he should start originally with the northeast and then come back to the southwest? Nitiv beresha maravit dromit, let him sprinkle first on the southwest, vahadar mizrachit tzfonit, and then afterwards in the northeast. So again, the Gemara answers, kevan de amar mar, kol pinot she'ata poneh, lo yihiyu ela derech yamin. That's because we have a statement, okay, that when the Kohen would come up and start moving around the upper part of the Mizbeach, he would always move to the right and continue around to the right. Okay? And that was how he would face. The Mizrach Beresha. Okay? To the east first, Bahahu Paga. And that's where he would encounter it. So the Gemara continues, Umimai de ba'olahu de ka'amar rachmana avid ba ma'aseh chatat. And on what basis is it here that the Torah required that this tamid offering that normally is considered an olah, in this case should be carried out like a chatas? V'dilma b'chatat. Okay, perhaps here, okay, we're talking that maybe we're dealing with an example of a Rosh Chodesh chatas, the ka'amar rachmana, as the Torah tells us, avid b'ma'aseh olah, that should be done like an olah. Lo salkadatach, don't even consider it, says the Gemara. Dichtiv, because it's written, al aulat hatamid ye'aseh v'nisko, because that's how the pasuk is written. Right? Mai ka'amar rachmana. So what then is the Torah trying to tell us? Midei chadechatat shadei ha'olah. Okay. Something that normally, okay, would be considered a chatas, here is placed as an olah. Okay? That's what he's saying. That normally what would be done is the sin offering is placed here as the olah. Now, at this point, again, a slightly new discussion takes place, right? And in this discussion, okay, takes us to another area, okay, away in the Beis Hamikdash. I know Koren has a diagram, okay, and wouldn't surprise me if Art Scroll should have a diagram as well, okay? All right.
15B1, I think.
Yeah, 15B1. Okay, thank you. Okay, so you have right now 4 chambers or 4 small rooms inside of a larger area. Okay, each room has a different purpose. Okay, and the Gemara is going to refer to those 4, let's call them rooms, chambers, in the larger hall. Okay, And this is what it tells us. Okay, Tnan Hatam. It was taught in a Mishnah there the following. Okay, Amar Lehem Hamimuna, the person who was the, let's say, supervisor, the superintendent, the one in charge of the, okay, Tsa'u veheviu tle milishkat beit hatlaim. Go and bring a lamb from the chamber of the lambs. Okay. Right? So that was one of the four rooms, chambers in this large hall. V'halo lishkat tlaim haita b'miktzva tzfonit ma'aravit. But we raised the question, now wasn't this chamber of the lambs located in the, right, which location? In the northwestern corner. Va'arba lishkot hayusham. And there were four chambers, okay, or four cells, four rooms there. Echad lishkat hatlaim. One was the chamber, okay, or the room for the lambs. Ve'echad lishkat hachotamot. One was the chamber or the room for the seals, seals, not animals, okay, here. But what would happen is when someone came to the Beis Mikdash and they did not bring their own animal, they would go pay for an animal and they would get basically a receipt. They would take the receipt to this area. They would present the receipt to an official. The official would then give them, seeing that they paid for an animal, would give them an animal, and then they could take that animal for the offering. And therefore, this room was where they, so to speak, the archives for all these seals, these receipts, right? Ve'echad lishkat beit hamokad. And another, okay, was the chamber for the hearth or for the fireplace. Okay, this was a smaller fire that could be used either to light the large fire in the middle of the hall, by which the Kohanim could warm themselves in the winter, or others want to suggest it was the fire that served as the basis for Kohen to use to go kindle the ma'aracha up on the Mizbeach. Okay? Now, ve'echad lishka she'osin ba lechem hapanim. And one was the chamber, the room in which they made the showbread, right? The Shabbos, right? Or minhu. But we have a challenge to this statement. Arba lishkot hayu lebeit hamokad. That says that there were these four chambers, these four rooms, in the large hall of the Beit Mokad, of the large hearth. Kikatuniot, that these small rooms were really sort of semi-open rooms, small, semi-open, haptuchot l'teraklim, that it was like they were open to the central hall. Shtayim b'kodesh, two of them were in the section that were on the temple itself. In other words, in holy ground. Ushtayim b'chol, and two of the rooms, two of the areas were in non-consecrated land. Okay? Varosh paspasim mavdilin ben kodesh l'chol. And there were, according to one view, different openings in the floor. According to others, there were flagstones of different colors. According to another interpretation, there were actually small, let's call them dividers, either that came up from the floor or down from the ceiling, by which to designate the difference between Kodesh and Chol here. Mavdilin ben Kodesh lechol. Umahayu mishamshot. Okay, and what was their use? All right, Ma'arvit, Dromit, Hi Haita Lishkat Tlei Korban. That it's saying here that the southwestern one was used as the chamber for the lambs, as we said. I just go over a little bit. Dromit Mizrachit, again the southeastern one, the Shkat Shahayu Osin Ba Lechem Hapanim, that the Lechem Hapanim was done in that one. Mizrachit Tzfonit, the northeastern one, Ba Ganzu Beit Chashmonai, Avnei Mizbeach Sheshaktsum Malchei Avdei Kochavim, that was a, so to speak, more of a storeroom where they stored those sections of the Mizbeach, of the altar, that the Hasmoneans had to clean and replace after all the Greek kings had defiled them. Tzfonit Maravit, and the north western section, right? Beit Yordin Lebeit Hatfila. Okay, that was a room that was used to go down for immersion. Okay? So basically, we're going to stop here at this point, okay? Because we're going to see, we see here that there's a difference of opinion, okay, as to number one, where each of these four rooms were located, and number two, also somewhat of a difference of opinion as to the purpose of some of them. Some are in agreement that certainly one of the chambers was used for lambs. Okay? Certainly another agreement, one of the chambers was used for the making of the showbread. But in other cases, we'll see what is the answer to this disagreement. Okay? So as I said, we'll stop there and pick up tomorrow.
I wish everybody a happy Pesach